Okay. Do you ever have those thoughts where you're like, why am I having those thoughts? That seems weird. Am I a serial killer? Those are called intrusive thoughts. Let's talk about it right now. Hey everybody, welcome back. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Lori. If you're new here, I am an alternative therapist. I also specialize in trauma, anxieties, depressions, everything about the mind. Well, because I've gone through a lot of it. So if that's something that interests you, consider subscribing and hitting the bell in the corner for notification. You'll get notified every time I post. All right, so let's talk about these intrusive thoughts. So first, let me share with you some of my intrusive thoughts, right? So some of my thoughts look like every time I have a hammer, it's just a hammer, it's not a saw. I mean, it has been, but every time I hold a hammer, it's like, what if I just bash somebody's head in right now, right? Or if I'm driving down the road, I'm like, driving down the road, I'm like, oh, what if I just, into oncoming traffic, you know, in my brain, I'm not acting on it. Or another one for me is if I'm going over a bridge. What if I drove off the bridge? What if I jumped off the bridge? All those things come into play, as well as, so a lot of that is for self too. So it can also be harmful thoughts of self, about yourself and or others. Those are called intrusive thoughts. So let's talk about them. You're like, oh my gosh, yeah, like why do I have those? I want those to stop. It's a thought, right? So be clear, we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. Yes. 60,000 thoughts a day. And these are random thoughts. So these are thoughts that could be, what if I could fly like a bird? Like it could be just random thoughts. It could be stress thoughts, like what do you have to do for work? It's just how your brain works. So the trauma thoughts, or what you guys consider them as trauma thoughts, the intrusive thoughts, believe it or not, they can happen for just about anybody. And honestly, those thoughts are just thoughts. And it's hard when you have, let's say you have OCD and you are an obsessive thinker. So when you're an obsessive thinker, you feel that, like that thought comes into brain, right? Because your thoughts are just thoughts. Every thought does not, it never has an emotional attachment to it. You provide those emotional attachments to those thoughts. So when you're having a thought and it triggers something that morally goes against you, it could be, something against an animal or a human or sexual in nature or violent in nature. Please keep in mind, they're just thoughts. But what happens is a lot of times when you have obsessive compulsive disorder, especially with obsessive thinking, you go, whoa, what if I do that? Like, am I going to do that? Oh my God, am I going to be crazy? And then it's like the void, like it's like the void to action where you're like, well, if I feel like I'm going to push somebody onto the train, I better back up, because you're like, well, if I do that, then I won't do that. And I need you to understand that they're just thoughts. You do not have to have trauma behind them. I mean, that being said, when you do have trauma and or OCD and other various things that are going on in your brain, yeah, it can make it more exasperated, and it can bring that up to surface. And it can be one of those things, because you obsessively think about it, you keep it alive a lot longer. So, but understand, you don't have to have any of those. It is just a thought. And you're like, well, why? Like, why am I having them? I can't explain why. If I knew that, I would be like, wow, I'm a multimillionaire, because I know exactly how the brain works. I can only tell you that it is not something for you to fear. Don't think that something's wrong with you and you're like, am I a closeted serial killer? Like, you're like, am I that person? You're not. You know, now, that being said, if it starts just becoming overwhelming and you're like, oh my gosh, and these impulses are there, then absolutely, for sure, get that checked out. Is it something that you can get medicine for? No, there's no medicine that just stops on intrusive thoughts. That being said, if you do have OCD and or you're on certain medications for your OCD and or depression and anxiety, it can make them less, just because it's just that part of your brain. But I don't want you to worry about obsessive thinking, totally different topic. But I don't want you to worry about the intrusive thoughts, and try not to feed it, right? Understand that when you have those thoughts, it does not, that was my oven. It does not even remotely describe you. And very often those thoughts you have, it's because it's opposite of what you would do. So maybe you would never push somebody onto the train, because that's just not who you are. It's just that opposite, and it's just how your brain works. There's a lot of wonky things that in mental health, we still learn about the brain every day. Nobody has all the answers to the brain. We have a good indicator of what this means, why this happens. But honestly, it's just like a hypnic jerk before you go to sleep at night. If you've ever been laying in bed and you're laying in bed and all of a sudden you're like, oh, and you jump and you're like, holy crap, what just happened? And it can be auditory as well, to where you hear like a bang or somebody call your name, or, you know, so those are all just responses. Yes, they can be exasperated by other things like OCD and various things like that. Do not watch this video and now say, oh my God, I have OCD. That is not what this is for. This is simply to tell you that you don't have to have OCD or any other mental disorder that is going to contribute to this. Again, does it make it more intense? Yes, it can. That does not mean that that's what you have. I wanted to do the video to let you guys know you're not crazy. You're not abnormal. You're not some massive raging serial killer that's like cloaking and hiding as a mom or dad. None of those things. So I just wanted to be very clear on that. And that's why I wanted to make the video, to let you know that intrusive thoughts are only thoughts. So what do you do when that happens, right? Let me give you some tips. Acknowledge it. Don't fight it. Don't say what's wrong with me. I want you to go, okay, I realize that this is an intrusive thought. It is only a thought. I'm not even gonna breathe life into it. It's a little freaky and I'm fine with that, but I know that that's not me. And don't let your brain, the critter brain, the amygdala, kick in and go, yeah, but what if you are? No, we're gonna have to tame it back. So keep in mind, it's not gonna be a one and done. You're not just gonna have an intrusive thought, have that, address it and be like, cool, I'm better now. Like that's not a thing. And also keep in mind, it's not gonna make them go away forever because it's just a normal response of the thoughts. Thoughts are only thoughts. Don't breathe emotion into them if they're not serving you, right? So with that being said, I look forward to chatting with you in the next video.